Scotland is steeped in centuries of history. Its scenery is breathtaking, and at its heart we find a city where the past merges with the present in an unforgettable tapestry that mirrors perfectly the beauty that surrounds it. In a deep hollow in the heart of the city, we find the historic grass market. It's a spectacular scene. From here, the Candlemakers' Row winds up to join the road crossing the George IV Bridge. And just across from it, we find the statue of Greyfriars Bobby, the little Skye Terrier who spent 14 years lying by his master's grave in the Greyfriars Kirkyard behind the pub. From the church, I headed back across the George IV Bridge to where a path leads onto the balcony above the shops of Victoria Street and the West Bow. And I headed back to one of the many closes that leads up and onto the Royal Mile. The Royal Mile climbs gradually from Holyrood Palace at its eastern end to reach the summit of an 80-metre high lump of towering volcanic rock. And dominating this ancient crag and appearing to grow organically out of the rock there, we find the most imposing castle imaginable, Edinburgh Castle, dominating the horizon for miles. The Royal Mile is pretty much what it says it is. It links the castle with Holyrood Palace, and it's approximately 1 mile in length. It consists of Castle Hill, the Lawn Market, the High Street and the Canongate, and at the foot we have the Abbey Strand. The Lawn Market is the oldest part of the old town, and probably the busiest. The Royal Mile is associated with many shady characters from the past. At the foot of the High Street we come across the most beautiful old townhouse. It's known as John Knox's house. It was built in the late 15th century. The old town continued to grow within the city walls. The East Gate was just ahead, where the road becomes the Canongate, and when the space ran out, they just started building upwards. With the creation of these high-rise tenements, the city was fast becoming the most densely populated city in Europe. As the Royal Mile winds down from the castle to Holyrood at its base, the various different closes become more and more noticeable. This is where we find the Writers' Museum. There is a lane, Lady Stairs Close, leading on to the Lawn Market at the top of the Royal Mile. This is the White Horse Close. The magnificent little square was at one time a coaching inn, and it's thought to be named after one of Mary Queen of Scots' horses. It dates from the 17th century, and it's where Prince Charlie's Jacobite generals were billeted in 1745. As we reach the bottom of the Royal Mile, we see the Queen's Gallery, an exhibition of works from the royal collection. The palace was closed to the public when I was there. At the east side of Abbey Hill, I noticed a strange little 16th century building. It's known as Queen Mary's Bathhouse. I left Princes Street and the castle behind as I headed up Castle Street. I then headed past Charlotte Square, where there's an excellent touching statue of Prince Albert, Queen Victoria's husband. As you approach Dean Bridge, a little cobbled road winds down to the left of it. This is Bell's Brae, and each step down the brae takes you further back in time to where the water of Dean winds its way through the last areas of Old Town in this part of the city. Dean Village was at one time a centre of industry. There were more than half a dozen water mills operating in the river here for about 8 centuries, powered by the strong currents of the river. It's difficult to realise that this sleepy, picturesque little hollow is only a couple of minutes' walk from the city centre. Prior to the development of the Edinburgh New Town, this was a separate village. As I headed down to the gardens, I noticed one of the new trams approaching from St Andrew Street. Edinburgh is a most fascinating city, a city built in hills, and when there was no room to build out, they built up, and up again. From here, the old town appears in front of you, as if it were placed in a three-dimensional canvas. There's nowhere else like it. It's breathtaking. The next point of interest in this area is the Scott Monument, which is over 200 feet high, with Scott carved from white Carrara marble, seated between the towers, holding his quill pen and with his dog Maida by his side. It was completed in 1844, 12 years after his death. The Prince's Gardens lie in a deep valley between the Old Town and the New Town, and an Act of Parliament has been passed to ensure that there will be no further development between Princes Street and the Old Town. There's a wonderful monument to the Royal Scots Greys near the west end of the gardens. This is what I call retail therapy. I took the tram as it headed to the east of Princess Street. I was heading to Calton Hill. Calton Hill, at the east end of Princess Street, is 338 feet high. Arthur's Seat and the Salisbury Crags provide the most beautiful backdrop. To the east was Holyrood Palace. It was a bit easier to see now than it was when I was down outside it. It is also the location of several of Edinburgh's unusual and iconic buildings. The first structure you come across is the National Monument. Playfair was responsible for most of the monuments in the hill. Sitting facing the Dougal-Stewart Monument is a huge cannon sporting the Spanish royal arms. It arrived in the south of Asia in the mid-18th century. The British captured it in Burma in 1885 and offered it to the city of Edinburgh a year later. I thoroughly enjoyed my trip to Edinburgh. It's a city like no other. It's like visiting the past and the present. The area is steeped in history. It's like a living pop-up book of Scotland's past. It's a spectacular city that is truly unmissable.